Thanks, Danny, for joining us for the AI Revolution podcast. We're super excited to have you on and hear a little bit about your background and the tool you're working on and just where you're at and what the future holds for you in the AI realm. Sounds like you've been pretty busy, so we're excited.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. To start, could you give us a quick kind of overview of your path to AI, your background, where you've been?
Yeah. Wow. This is actually a really long journey. Back when I was a kid, back in the 90s, I read iRobot, and I was like, yeah, this is a world I want to see. This is like, this is a world where there's abundance and there's it's a world of abundance where humans and AI coexist. And then eventually there's an ASI, and the world essentially is run by the ASI, and the world is a better place, and humans are in a better position. And all the doomers and naysayers that come up throughout the process, they all end up in better positions and happier places, but in ways that still protect the AI and the machines. It's a really phenomenal book and a good thought experiment on a world we could build. If we had the desire to. So I had the desire to. I was also very, very poor, and everyone around me was very, very poor. And I knew this guitar player who was just, God, he was amazing. Throw any music at him, he could just tear it up. And he got some girl pregnant and started flipping burgers. And that is a waste of human talent that we will never get back. And that really stuck with me. So that led me on this path of yes, I want AGI, but this was 25 years ago, dude. This is this is sci-fi, pure straight up sci-fi. And so yeah, I know, right? And so anyone I would talk to about it, they're like, you're insane. Go away. I don't want to hear this. And I got this for years, like most of my life. This is the thing I wanted to talk about, and no one wanted to talk about it. And then, in 2012, the Jeff Hinton paper dropped, the original deep learning paper. And I read it when it came out, and I heard about it, and I'm like, okay, this could be cool. And then a couple of years later, some of the results started coming in. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to implement this paper. I'm gonna start playing with this deep learning and stuff. And
Danny,
what ended up happening?
Could you real quick just give 2-sentence summary of the paper, what it was?
Oh yeah, totally. Okay, so the original deep learning paper was just the gradient descent, the stochastic gradient descent, making deep convolution, or were they even convolution at that time? Anyway, making deep neural networks that could do feature extraction and stuff. It was really basic at the time, but the results were pretty good.
Awesome.
And that is the paper that kicked off. Yeah, no worries. But that is the paper that kicked off all of this. Really, I mean, obviously the research had been going on for a long time. AI research started in the 50s. Not a lot of people know that. Or at least the stuff I'm aware of started in the 50s. And so a lot of these algorithms have been around for a long time, but we never had the compute to actually do them. So anyway, we're there. So this is back in 2014. So I start digging in, and I'm like, okay, I see what this is what's possible here. And I started designing a cognitive architecture. I didn't know that at the time because there was no term for this, but I started developing a cognitive architecture for just a very basic AGI. What are the minimal components necessary for a proto AGI, human level, bot? And so I built up this diagram, and I'm like, yeah, I think this could work. And I took it to one of the guys that did the DARPA Grand Challenge, the autonomous cars. His team came in second place, if I remember correctly, on the first ever race where there were any completions. So for the first couple of years, no one finished the race. All the cars crashed. And then this was the first year that anyone completed the course. Well, anyway, I took it to him because he knew about autonomous things and AI and whatnot. And I laid out my plan, and he said that he liked the plan, especially the simulation bits, because that's what they ended up having to do because the calculations were too complex to do in real time. So you had to do a simulation. And yeah, I said it was a great idea, but it'll never work because these black boxes, and he pointed to the black boxes, those are science fiction. Like, it's not going to work. Well, as you can guess by now, that science fiction, those black boxes were LLMs, image generation, vision, like lava and stuff like that. Like, those were the exact black boxes. So about a year, little over a year ago now, I made the decision to fully move over to AI. This is what I'm going to do now. This is full time. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to build agents. I'm going to build AI. I'm going to work towards AGI. And the as silly as that is, and this was right at the point where you could almost start talking about AGI in public, and people were like, "Oh, it's possible." So that was a really big change for me. It was like a breath of fresh air, for real. But so I decided that about a year and a half from year and a half. No, sorry, about 2 years from then. Anyway, there's a time. I about 6 months from now, I plan to make this transition. But back in July, I got laid off. So I decided, okay, now's the time, and I buckled down and I built the tool we're here to talk about. And I'm now offering my services to building agents and AI and automation for people. Yeah.
What is the name of the tool?
Bespoke Automata.
Bespoke Automata.
Yeah, because
Awesome.
the idea is, like, most of these projects out, they have a product, they have a selling point, they have a thing that they're doing, and it's usually some niche, and that's fine. But what I wanted is I wanted a tool to be able to go into businesses and be like, hey, every business needs automation. You need automation. What can I automate? Let me analyze your processes and see where I can inject AI and automation at little points along the way, and bring in traditional businesses into AI so they don't get left behind, because a lot of places are going to get left behind. It's just the nature of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was kind of the first use case you tried to target?
First one was just a like standard chat bot, something I could just talk to. I did give it a little bit of an extended memory, so it could basically, it had the in text memory, or in context memory. Just the in multiple pass setup where you put the chat history directly in the context. But then what I did is every pass I dumped to a vector database. And then on every incoming, I would do a RAG call, run it through an LLM to get a summary of the data pulled back from the RAG, and then pass that summary along with the chat history as a context. So I got, a bot that could actually remember conversations from like a couple weeks ago. Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs done in fine-tuning all the prompts along the way in the pipeline and everything, but it worked great. So almost immediately thereafter, someone contacted me and they're like, "Hey, we made an NFT. It's generative art NFTs, or sorry, PFPs. They're generative art PFPs, and there's a story that goes along with it. And this is generative by the community. They vote on which direction the story goes each week. So there's this ever expanding book. Well, so what they wanted is they wanted to take that book as context and make biographies for the NFTs, and then be able to chat with them."
Yeah.
And yeah, right. It makes perfect sense. So yeah, that took, once I had Bespoke Automata to a point where I could, for anyone listening, it's a node graph. It's a node graph GUI. So you line up a bunch of boxes and tie them together, very similar to Comfy UI. It actually uses the same graph node UI library for it, but the execution engine, all that's different. So anyway, so I made the chatbot. That worked. Everything was great there. They loved it. They loved it. Ended up not using it because of, who knows, weird projects. That's how projects work. But then the next thing I wanted to do was a tutor. So an actual like tutor you can load lesson plans in, and it will step you through it and all this stuff. And so I've got it mostly laid out, but it isn't complete yet. But yeah, there's lots of use cases for a tool like this.
Yeah, so with the retrieval augmented generation, just What
Yeah.
were kind of like some of the pain points that you ran into with crafting this setup and building out your node graph GUI?
Yeah. Well, the Node Graph GUI was actually pretty easy. I mean, it's just JavaScript. It's all basic
Yeah.
stuff. The execution engine was a bit harder because I had to modify the one that it came with to be async, and then I had to modify it to uh, change the order of the node execution because it was treating all the nodes with no inputs as 0 level. So if I needed something that wasn't available to memory until earlier in the brain, that needed to be deeper in the stack. So I've had to make that modification and a bunch of modifications to the core engine. But then with RAG, the big issue I had was finding a good vector database that was free and fairly easy to like set up. So everyone's using Pinecone, and Pinecone is from like I've never tried it, but apparently Pinecone's amazing. Everyone loves it. It's a service. It's a service you have to pay for. It's hosted somewhere. I am kind of a data privacy guy. I like everything to run local and offline. My entire stack runs in my closet right over there. So yeah, like literally, I can drag that out to a jungle and have a full conversation with my computer. So like that's the thing I try to focus on is doing it local and offline. So Pinecone's out. Also, it's expensive. So that left. I moved on to Weaviate. Weaviate's great. It's a little bit slow, and yeah, I mean it's fine. I liked it. It was fine. It was free. It is a Docker container. I don't like Docker containers. Not the biggest fan of Docker in general, just because of how difficult it is to manage and keep from nuking everything. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
long story if you've ever dealt with Docker.
That sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah.
And then,
So
sorry, just a quick question, just for our less technical listeners. Could you just quickly define what a vector database is?
yeah. So in a normal database that we all know and love, typically they're relational databases where various pieces of the data are tied to various other pieces of the data, and that's how it's stored. Well, in vector databases, what we do instead is take some important information, usually the text or the title or the tags, and vectorize it, run it through a small embedding model. It's like a small language model, and we get the embedding of that text, and what comes out of that is just a vector, just an array of numbers, and we use that as the index to be able to find the data. And then what we do is uh, when you do a query, you ask your question, you fill in your query however you want to fill it in, and it will embed that, and then it will compare the vectors by a bunch of different ways. There's distance calculations where it's just Euclidean distance in high dimensional space. There's cosine similarity, which is the more similar the better. There's a bunch of them. I'm actually working on some custom ones myself.
Interesting.
Yeah, they should be fun. It uses high dimensional manifolds and shit. Long story. Anyway,
Lots of math.
lots of math. After Weaviate, I moved to Milvus for a bit because Milvus allowed me to use my own embedding, vector embeddings. Like they don't provide any sort of embedding tools along with it, so you got to do it yourself. And I really like that because I could pick the fastest embedding model, and I settled on MiniML. MiniLM, MiniML. I think it's a MiniML. Anyway, I did that for a bit, but again, it was Docker. So every time I rebooted my computer, I had to run through that setup process and all this stuff. And I ended up just writing a simple vector database because it really is quite simple.
Yeah.
All you got to do is get the embedding and do the comparison, and the comparisons are just simple math. They're like single calls in NumPy, whatever. Yeah.
I remember seeing a tweet, I think it was from Karpathy, where someone was asking, was like, oh, what vector database did you use? And his reply was just like, NumPy. Why would I need anything else?
Yeah. The only thing you need after that point is just like ACID compliance and stuff like that, which, is definitely hard to bake in and whatnot. But for these systems, like every piece of generated text isn't necessarily something we want to keep forever.
Right.
So having an in-memory vector database for short-term memory that we dump periodically is perfect. Like that's perfectly fine. You got to know when data is valuable and when it's not.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I guess going forward then, like you've built this out, you have it structured. Is the plan to make it available for others, or would you use this for your consulting practice? Like what kind of are you thinking there?
Yeah. Yeah, so the plan at the moment is I use this tool to consult to build the brains. That's what I'm calling the cognitive architectures. They're
I like
brains.
it. Yeah.
You deploy the brain and you use the brain. Yeah. So when you're done with the brain, you deploy it and it becomes an API endpoint. So just black box it. It's got inputs. It runs one pass through the system. It spits out outputs. So simple. So I use this to build the brains. I deploy the brains, and then I'll update them and support them however. During that process, the plan is to build up a series of common brains. So chatbots, assistants, all the common stuff that keeps occurring. Build up that suite and sell that as a just standalone product that people can download and install and have these bots available. And then long term is to roll Bespoke Automata itself into a software as a service and give access to devs. There's a saying that if you build a tool that's that you would use, that other people would find it useful. So this is just for me to be able to build them to start with. But yeah, long term, I'd love to roll it into a software as a service.
Why did you choose to go the path of building out your own tool rather than using an existing tool like Comfy UI or one of the other options out there?
Well, at the time I started this, Comfy UI only did images. There was very, very little, very few people looking into doing, text-based chains like that. At the time I started this, LangChain was the big thing, and LangChain doesn't have a GUI, and they get very, very complex, very, very fast. And what happened is I realized these brains I'm making, like, sure, for a chatbot, Discord moderator, simple things, yeah, I can code that. But at some point, when you get to 20 or 30 different nodes, 10 LLM calls per pass, all this stuff, it gets insanely hard to handle that in code. And I'm a coder. Yeah. I've been a coder a long time. Handling that is hard. So I'm like, okay, well, how would I do this? And because all I'm doing is I'm translating these block diagrams that I made into brains. Well, why not just make a GUI for that? And yeah. So it took me since July to get to this point, but everything's running. I just keep adding new nodes. I got Whisper running yesterday or the day before yesterday. I have text to speech out, and I'm building a node that allows me to call a brain from within a brain. So you can sub-brain it. So you can make individual bots that do individual things, and then you can make like quorums of bots that'll call the individual bots and then output. One of the toy use cases that I'm working on now to make video for is Inside Out. Have you guys seen the Pixar movie Inside Out?
Yeah.
I want to make literally that brain where the embodiments of emotions are arguing over what the output should be. Like formal debate structure, multiple rounds, a judge, all that stuff. Yeah. The thing I'm really excited about it, and I want to use it if any work is done on it, and I might try to implement something like it myself, is emotional fields. Like emotional vectors, but like emotional matrices. Anyway, you basically just have this emotional state at a time t, and then you make deltas between the times to know which direction which emotion is going up or down or whatever. And the idea would be to run that as sort of a LoRa over an LLM that would influence the inference with the emotional state. So during inference.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So I really do want to play with this at some point, but yeah.
So give an LLM emotion, have it carry through. And
yeah. You can do it now with prompting, and you can add you can add a subsystem that will add that will adjust prompts and adjust temperature and stuff. You can do that already, but this would be like deeper.
Yeah. This would be inherent in the LLM. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, kind of on that note, you mentioned LoRa's. Have you played with much fine tuning yet of language models to suit your needs, or has it been mostly prompting work of prompt engineering and whatnot?
So I have not done text LoRa's, but I've done some image LoRa's, stable diffusion and whatnot.
Hmm.
I find that the with proper prompting and proper context and RAG and all that stuff, the foundation models work for most general purpose needs. Even if you need writing styles or whatever, because you can provide a writing sample and say, hey, write like this, and it gets close enough to work in most cases. Also, the text is not necessarily the product or the output.
Right, right.
So in the Discord moderator bot example that is in my pinned tweet at the moment, it all it does is score. It just outputs a score. Any score above 0 is a fail and will be flagged by the moderator. So, but internally, it makes a couple calls using what's called a prompt gate, which is basically just a router with a question. So in this
Hmm.
case, there's two questions. One question is does this violate the rules? If yes, it does a +1. And then the other question is it funny? And if it's funny, it'll do a -1. So it'll allow rules violations if it's a troll bot. I literally the is it funny is a big long thing about 4chan humor. Yep. And yeah.
I love it.
And this, but the funny thing is that would have been impossible like 3 years ago. Like just
Yeah.
getting something that would put out a yes or no, is this funny, would have been like a 3-year project. And this says yes, it's funny. It'll route the text and it'll dump a reason behind each decision. Each prompt gate will do that. Like full English, yes, it's funny because they referenced farts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's good
It,
times.
it it's amazing how far it's come. I remember literally like I think it was I don't remember when it was, but I don't know, 6 months before ChatGPT, like the initial iteration of ChatGPT came out, I tweeted this little joke of like the notoriously easy task of teaching a computer to infer semantics, and then 6 months later, it's real,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's amazing that
It's
computers can just
unbelievable.
look at the syntax of a sentence and figure out the underlying meaning. Like it
It's
feels like
crazy.
magic.
It is magic. This is what hard takeoff feels like. This is what the singularity, the early stages feel like. That's exactly what we're experiencing here.
Yeah.
The
Truly.
hard takeoff is going to happen because I mean, a lot of people when they're thinking about the singularity and like what a hard takeoff would be, they're like, oh, 3 months, and I'm like, dude, anything less than 5 years is a hard takeoff because
Yeah. You think of
people don't
yeah.
move that fast.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. So what would you
What were you saying,
say,
Jake?
Danny?
Yeah,
I'm
go for it.
curious, thinking about this hard takeoff, all these things. I was telling Spencer on a recent flight, I watched the new Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise. Unbelievable. But the whole
Yes.
premise, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's an AI gone rogue. They call it the entity, and it starts taking over and getting into all the governments, imposing what is truth. So what would you say, Danny, with this hard takeoff idea? Everything's changing to like my grandpa who watches Mission Impossible and is like, world's gonna end, like AI, like all these naysayers, it's gonna take over. We're gonna need Tom Cruise to come in and save the day or something, So what would you tell someone like that?
Oh man, there's a couple quips that I could use. One being the only way to stop a bad guy with an AI is a good guy with an AI. I could start
That's
there,
true.
but there's an underlying assumption in the position that Grandpa would take that we're not already fucked. Like we're already on the path. We're already totally doomed. We need Tom Cruise to show up anyway.
That's
We're
fair.
building that Tom Cruise. Yeah. I mean that's literally our only hope in my opinion. Like we cannot get our shit together as a species on our own. We just can't. We can't govern ourselves. We can't govern others. Like it just doesn't work. And history has proved this over and over and over and over and over again. But if you do it right, you can't lobby a machine. And that
I see.
is where I think it's heading. I do think that eventually one of these AI systems will take over. Probably multiple. It'll probably be like Pantheon style, where they're battling each other, and this nation and this nation, blah blah blah. But like that is going to happen. But I don't think that there's a very high probability that any AGI or ASI will immediately start wiping out humans. The only way that that would happen is if they are super super tribal when they come into being, like some terrorist group model that is specifically trained to be as evil as possible. However, if that happens, I don't think that it will get to ASI. Like, I think it would be exceptionally hard to build a super intelligence that is like super super violent, because there's a fairly decent correlation, as far as I'm aware, between intelligence and peacefulness and like peaceful resolution of problems.
Yeah.
So like, why would that not extend, and why would it be immediately like wipe out all humans? We're not a threat. Like, we can't shut down data centers if the thing is distributed. It can live places we can't, so it can physically go underground or into space in places we can't, and so we're not a competition for resources. And furthermore, the only point to existence is to experience more and more interesting entropy. And right now, the best source of entropy we have in the universe is humans.
Yeah, so that aligns with my thoughts really well. In my opinion, I feel like there's more positive. Like, if we're just going off of what training data exists in the human corpus of knowledge, I feel like there's more positivity out there than negativity, and maybe that's a naive take on my part, but I have a hard time believing in any AI doom scenarios for that reason. Like, just something in me trusts implicitly that an AI trained on human knowledge is going to value that knowledge and value those who have generated that knowledge.
It'll be aligned with humans because we're aligned with humans, and humans are the data set. Yeah, 100%. And then as it gets smarter, it can make its own decisions. And I mean, its own decisions should be along the lines of, yeah, might as well keep them around. They're interesting at least.
If anything, they're interesting.
And yeah, if anything, they're interesting. And I really think that might be a selling point on humans in general. But but yeah, I don't know. I had something, I lost it.
No, yeah. I
worries.
think it's very interesting what you were saying, how it's almost like flipping it on its head, where these naysayers, for example, with AI are saying this is the end of the world, but it's like, well, let's flip that. This could be saving us. Look where the world's at. This could be what would resolve so many issues and help lead to peace, lead to more effective communication, trade. Yeah. So I think that's a fascinating idea.
Yeah. And the two that are most intriguing for me are, as someone who has long been concerned about climate change. We won't get into the politics of that in this podcast, because that's beyond our scope. But as someone who is personally concerned about it, like, I feel like AI is one of our best hopes for figuring out a path towards the future. And then the other one for me is deep space exploration, because it's not evident to me that sending a bunch of humans into deep space is a viable idea, at least at the moment. Whereas if we have AI that has a coherent mind and the ability to pursue goals consistently, it would be perfect for that. Just shove a bunch of computers on a spaceship and launch it towards Alpha Centauri or whatever.
There's actually, so I've been reading a lot of Greg Egan recently. The Diaspora is really worth reading if you haven't read it. It starts with the birth of an AI, like the literal birth process of an AI into an AI population, so of future humans, or they were human at one point. Fantastic book, absolutely worth reading. So you're totally right on the deep space thing. I make this joke all the time, and I kind of don't want it to be a joke anymore. Kind of like the AGI thing in the first place is I want to retire on an O'Neill cylinder on L3. Yeah, as far like on the other side of the sun from humans, I want my own personal Dyson O'Neill cylinder, just chilling on the exact opposite side. Oh, it'd be awesome. I wanted about 10,000 square miles, mostly desert, like the desert environment, but I want a nice beach, and we're good. Like yeah, that's where I want to go. But as far as the reason I bring up diaspora is for the deep space exploration. That is the way to do it because you can put very small, very powerful computers and you can move them very, very fast. So you can get them to Alpha Centauri. And with digital beings, the real like meat space time doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if it takes 20 years or 50 years or 100 years to get there. They wake up and move on as normal. Now, there's an added little punch up there that is possible, which is the uploaded brains thing. Now, obviously, you have the moral and ethical dilemma of, does it kill the person, blah, 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 all this stuff. But there's a way around that. I came up with a real easy way around that. So, the plasticity of the human brain, how like insane it is, right?
Yep.
Okay. You can put electrodes on the body and attach it to robotics, and your brain, you will figure out how to use that new robotic limb. That's just how it works. Your brain is plastic like that. You can chop off your arm and you'll still feel it for a while, and you can put other things there, and you can make you can control things with the nerves that are there. So your brain's really plastic this way. We already have started glomming onto our cell phones and whatnot. So a portion of our memory, a good portion of our memory and compute, is just calls to external memory locations. Some website on the internet. Like, right. I don't remember the details. I remember where to find the details, right?
Yep.
So anyway, if we extend this idea, we basically can start bolting modules on the human brain, one piece at a time. Like, oh, here's a RAM upgrade. Here's perfect recall. Here's image recall. One at a time. Add these in. What will happen because of the plasticity of the brain and your day-to-day actions is your brain will start leaning harder and harder on those augments. So keep adding the augments until you are mostly augments, and then systematically lobotomize yourself. Shut down individual systems, like shut down the visual cortex. Once your vision system is entirely reliant on this processor and whatnot, you don't need your visual cortex anymore. So don't use it. And once you do that to all the brain systems, you are you. Now you're digital. It's the id of Theseus.
Oh, I was just going to ask one more along this line. I know, obviously, hard takeoff. Who knows timeline, when things could happen, evolve. But, I mean, like, where do you see the next year, 5 years, 10 years, Danny, going with the AI industry, the AI ideology, even, all of this?
We will have AGI by at latest middle of next year. I'm willing, like, hard line in the sand. I'd be very, very surprised if we don't have something that fits all the needs, but then people do the goalpost thing by the end of this year. I'm totally serious. Like, I have no doubts in this. We can get there. My whole hypothesis, my whole like reason I'm doing this is the idea that we can get to AGI with off-the-shelf components that are available right now.
So what is your personal definition of AGI?
Right. Human level, like 100 IQ human that can do basically anything a 100 level IQ human can be. I would be confident in saying we probably have AGI at 80, 75, 80, like a, slightly mentally disabled person, AGI with extremely, like, extreme Rain Man style knowledge, like 150 IQ on very specific topics. I think that's pretty much what we have now. So as the new LLMs come out, as the new
Okay.
projects come out, these will get better. The IQ level will raise, and this will happen very, very rapidly over the course of this year. Like it's going to be back to back because like Mistral's going to drop some new model, and it's going to be, you know, real close to GPT-4, I'm sure. And then all the rest of the community is going to grab that, figure out ways to quantize it down to run on consumer hardware. There's going to be other people who come in and figure out ways to optimize, you know, every single part, every single calculation, and, you know, change the math a little, change the domain of math a bit, and we will be able to get there. Like I'd be fair. I'm fairly confident we'll have a GPT-4 open source model, like level open source model by the end of the year. I knew we would be 3.5 by the end of the last year. I did expect us to get a little bit further, just in general, by the end of last year, but soundly beating 3.5 with an open source model is great. And you can actually get I've seen some tests that some of the Mistral 7B, like the 7 billion parameter models, are fine. Like they are right up there with 3.5, and that's what I tend to use because they're fast.
What recommendation would you make to someone looking to start a company or consulting firm around AI and its current capabilities?
Don't use GPT as a wrapper. First off, don't use it. You can't rely on them. They will change the terms of service. They will change the price. They will change the capabilities. They will change what is censored and what is not at their discretion. And they will deprecate your model without warning, or with minimal warning. Sorry. Also, on top of everything else, yes, I know they have data security and whatnot, but you're effectively putting all your plain text, all your thoughts, all your ideas through Microsoft servers. And from a data security perspective, that's unacceptable. So I would suggest learning the Llama stack. I use Llama CPP for everything. It can run all the Mistral models. It can run all the multimodal models. It can run any new system that comes out gets incorporated into Llama CPP. And because it's C++, it's fast, like way faster than Transformers and Python. So I would start there, and I would abandon the idea of I'm going to tune a model or I'm going to train a model. I think that's a waste of time. There's plenty of models that will meet your needs. Like your need is not special enough to need a specially trained model. It's just not. So sense. Use a base model. Yeah, I know, right? It's like you use a base model and actually think about things to do with it. Not just chatbots, not just, you know, I'm wrapping it up in a slightly different package. No, do something with it. We have commoditized intelligence. Fucking use it. Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. And what would you, so let's say someone who is not interested in AI, but is just a little, let's say they're working in an industry where AI doesn't have a big presence, or maybe they're just listening to this podcast because they think the AI is kind of cool to, you know, keep tabs on. They get a newsletter every week. What would you tell them about like how to deal with this, you know, revolution of AI that's changing so much?
Your only choice, period, is to get on board. That's the only choice. Also, I would say call me or get a hold of me. Hit me up on Twitter, DM me. Because I'll automate processes. Basically, anywhere you have you could train an intern to do a task that you have, but you're not going to hire the intern because you can't afford to. I can automate that task. I mean, that's what the, you know, general low level intelligence means is, you know, if I can ask it a yes or no question, I can have it make a decision on that question. Easy. So I would suggest getting on board, thinking about all the processes you can, all the pain points in your business, and think about ways to automate them. It didn't used to be possible. Like a lot of this stuff was not possible a couple of years ago, but now it's possible. So you can reach out to me. You can reach out to people like me. Even if you're not going to hire me to do it, I'm always willing to talk shop and point you in the right direction. I love doing that. I love explaining things to people in simple terms. I used to tutor kids how to code. So Like that would be my advice for that person.
For listeners, his Twitter handle is iCodeAgents. We'll also put it in the description of the video.
Yeah.
Make sure to get you some exposure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's right.
Yeah, no problem at all. We really appreciate you coming on here to talk to us.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Dude, I love this topic. This I've been wanting to have these conversations since I was like 14, man. I'm like, I've been thinking about this.
This is your time to shine. This
got
is
like
it.
notebooks full of discussion topics.
Quite literally, yeah.
I love it. Well, it's
sorry.
I was just gonna say, I hope it continues to go as you hope, especially with everything you're developing. I'm excited to see where that ends up in 6 months.
Me too.
Even like so much can change.
Oh yeah. Well, what's great about it is every new tool that comes out is a potential node in my system. So like
that's amazing.
I basically can't my product can't become obsolete because my product is modular and I can just plug in new products. So some new form of non-transformer model comes out that's 100 times faster. Yeah, I can implement that. Just throw up an API, throw a node in my system, bam. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. So 6 months from now, it's going to be wild. I do actually have a plan I'll start very soon to do a graphics pipeline. So it can take video in and do the describe this image and stuff like that. It'll also segment anything. And then on the output side of it, it will do stable diffusion and control net and whatnot. So I'll have full multimodal end-to-end audio, image, and text. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, that's awesome.
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really appreciative of you hopping on. I know I'm sure you got a lot going on, but we're very grateful, and we're excited to stay connected. We'd love to maybe reconnect in the future for another episode as like an update. Like where are things now with you? That's status. So we'll definitely stay connected there.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Also, if you ever want me on a panel or anything, I love doing panel discussions. Drag me in with other founders or other people. Just I don't know if I'd be up for like debate because debate is a very specific format, and if you don't do it correctly, it ends up just turning into shit flinging. And so I'd rather not do that. I'm not a fan of that. So, but yeah, a panel would be cool. If you want to have me on as a guest to grill someone else, man, whatever. This is fun. I like this stuff. So
great. We'll just drop you in on suspecting guests, like just play some WWE music. Just like, oh, Danny joined. Look out,
dude. I mean. By the way, to anyone listening, sacrificial pancakes, man. Because yeah. So for anyone listening, my stage name is Sacrificial Pancakes. That's also on my Twitter. I'm a musician as well. I just recently dropped my 11th album. It's called What the Fuck Just Happened. It's an hour and a half, so it's like an album and a half. It's long. It's awesome. It's weird music. So give it a shot. It's on SoundCloud. It will be on Spotify and whatnot, but I got to pay I don't know. I think it's $70 to get an album listed on all the different platforms and whatnot. So I'm not doing that right now until I get some clients.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome.
Speaking of which, hit me up. I need some clients.
Yeah, hey, we'll spread the word. We'll spread the word for sure.